Pat Hall. I'm the occupational therapist with Hancock, Madison, Shelby Educational Services. I'd like to talk to you about sensory integration. This effort has been made possible by the Hancock Community Foundation and a lifelong learning grant that we received here at J.B. Stevens. And that has been able to provide us with a variety of equipment that we will be using with children who are receiving sensory integration services, and as well is now allowing us to produce a video for the training of staff and parents. And we hope this information is helpful to you in understanding sensory integration. I'd like you to just take a moment and think about what senses you're using right now. First of all, what are your eyes seeing? What are your ears hearing? What is your skin feeling? And what do you feel about gravity pushing down on you? Are you sitting? Is a child sitting on your lap? All of these things have to do with sensory integration. And you are now integrating sensory information into your system so that you can understand your world around you. Our sensory integration system is a very unconscious process. We don't think about it, but it does help give meaning to and sort information that are coming in from our senses all around us. It also allows us to act and react purposefully, and it is the foundation for academic learning, for social interaction and behavior. Again, our senses are sight, that's visual information. Hearing is auditory. Touch is tactile. Taste is gustatory. Smell is olfactory. Change in your head position, side to side or up and back, is vestibular. And the movement in your muscles is proprioceptive. And we also have a gut reaction. We have a visceral response. Why is this important to us as parents, to us as clinicians, to us as staff? Because the problem is invisible. It's easily misunderstood. That child appears in the classroom as a really unwilling child, and at home as well. And that child is less tolerated socially, and that child is always changing. Do you know that 5 to 15% of the children in the U.S. have enough difficulty with sensory integration information processing that it causes them to have learning difficulties? These children are not having any intellectual difficulties. They may be below average intelligence, average, or even above average intelligence, but their difficulty is in processing what comes into them and how to use it. These difficulties can be exhibited as academic or behavioral or social. And sometimes the medical problems can actually be greater and interfere with their peers and their daily lives. What do we know about sensory integration? Someone asked me recently as I was getting ready for a presentation at a school how long it would take me to teach the staff about sensory integration. And I said, well, I've been studying it intensively for over 10 years, and I feel like I am just beginning to grasp it. It is a very difficult concept to understand. We really know more about what happens than we know, and we know what to do about the sensory integration problems than actually what caused them. If you can think of it, it's kind of like a traffic jam or roadblock on a road that's causing gridlock or slowing that information down because the brain isn't processing it. There may be an injury to a child's brain that happened before that child was born, during their birth, or after their birth. It could be something that was created by an illness or a part of an illness. It also could be hereditary. There may be people in the family who seem very similar. It could be environmental toxins. It could be cultural deprivation. It really doesn't get worse with time, but it becomes more apparent as life demands increase. What are some of the common signs? Well, if there's difficulty with attending or concentrating, distractibility, organizing thoughts or ideas, problem solving, starting and finishing tasks, learning to read and write, copying from the board or a book. That child may be hyperactive, or they may be very clumsy. They may have what we call low muscle tone, and their body posture may be kind of lax, so that they're leaning on their arm, their head on their desk. They may look like they seem like they may have decreased stamina or poor self-esteem, and they may have difficulty with peer relationships as well. Well, what's the bottom of this? It really is the brain's inability to properly organize a multitude of information that's continually coming into us from our senses, and then to create an appropriate action or reaction while we're trying to get a task done. Well, why should you care about what or why or in what order sensory integration develops? If this child's brain can't organize the information that they see or hear properly, your job at school as a staff member or at home as a family member is going to be much harder. It's going to create difficulty and success with school, and everyone is just going to end up being miserable. There are 3 basic foundational sensory integration processes that you can help with. These are the basics. If you can start with these, you can build on those. First is vestibular, and that is change in head position of the person, such as swinging, rocking, and that can be back and forth or side to side. What parent doesn't know when you have a cranky child, you stand there and rock them side to side like this, and we get calming because the vestibular system is in your inner ear, and that gets calmed by going side to side or up and back, but not diagonal. That really raises the child's attention, and it gets them very active. Proprioceptive is when we have pressure to the joints, such as jumping on a trampoline or riding a bike. Tactile, that's feeling and touching textures. What of us doesn't like being wrapped up in something soft? Well, a child when they're an infant, say ages from birth to 1 year old, starts developing sensory integration that from all of these sources we just talked about. It helps them to develop eye movement, posture, balance, muscle tone, gravitational security, and that means feeling that they're okay with being lifted up away from the ground. Sucking, eating, and that parental bond, and also tactile comfort. Ages 1 to 3, if sensory integration is going along well, that child begins to understand where their body is in space, so that if they want a ball that's on the other side of a table, they know to go around. They also start motor planning or beginning to use both sides of their bodies to get a desired object. If their ball is over here, they may have to crawl a distance to get it. They're also paying attention to the details around them, such as a dog in the room or a cat in the room, and they also are starting to develop that emotional stability. From ages 3 to 6, they're coming into our preschool programs, they're coming into our kindergarten, and they're developing hand-eye motor skills. We ask them to because we're asking them to do writing and copying and tracing and coloring and cutting. All these things have to be in a foundation of good sensory motor integration. Also, that visual perceptual system, such as depth perception, is developing, and they start creating steps for purposeful action. When they come in the room, they know to hang up their coat and put it in their cubby. When they're 6 to 8, and now we're into kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, maybe if they have a good foundation in sensory integration, they develop self-esteem, self-control, self-confidence, the ability to concentrate, to organize, to think abstractly and to reason, and also a specialization of each side of their brain and their body. And they're really, truly able to learn at school. When we think about this, then let's go back to ages infancy to 1. If the child has not had a good foundation in their sensory integration in eye movement, they're not going to be able to read or copy from a text. If their posture is faulty, they will have difficulty sitting quietly or not moving too much or falling out of their chair. If their balance is faulty, they won't be able to stand in line, or they'll bump into other children when they're standing in line for recess or the cafeteria. Muscle tone, that muscle tone won't be there when they need to play at recess or to cooperate in PE class. gravitational security comes into play when they're climbing or swinging on playground equipment during recess. And as well, sucking, where does that come into play? When they get a drink from the water fountain, or when they're drinking their milk or their juice in the cafeteria. Eating, well, are they overly picky or overly sloppy? Do they have difficulty with textures and tastes of food? And that parental bond and that child bond is there for feeling secure. And tactile comfort, can that child allow their clothing to touch their body and it not disturb them to the point that it interferes with their thinking, or their unexpected bump on the bus or while standing in line? What are the hot button issues that can really trigger some outburst? Well, sometimes it's a transition from one activity or one location to another, or a change in routine. Maybe you're having a convocation that day, or maybe at home, maybe someone is ill. Maybe grandma or grandpa is quite ill, and they've had to have a change of routine, or maybe mom or dad has gone into the military and there's a big change in routine. Sometimes those loaded sensory and information times come at during riding the bus, or getting on and off of the bus, passing in the hallway, recess, PE class is big. There's so much going on in all arenas, cafeteria, or convocations. And guess what? Homework or difficulty with any of the academic areas, such as handwriting, reading, and math, really can trigger some emotional issues because they just can't cope anymore. So when we're assisting a child with their sensory integration, or their sensory diet, we look at various forms of activity. And I'm going to show you some of those in just a few minutes in this wonderful room that we were allowed to set up through our grant process that gave us so much beautiful equipment to use with our kids. Vigorous activity really needs to be followed by gradually slowing or calming the child's activity level down. You also need to leave time for that time to go from intensive to moderately intensive to calming in the activity levels that you're asking, and especially even at home. If you get that child ramped up right before bedtime, good luck at getting them to quiet down to go to sleep. Also, watch out for undesirable physical reactions, and I'll talk about those in just a moment. As well, don't force any one type of physical activity. Allow the child a choice, because not all of us like the same thing all the time. We also get tired of the same thing all the time. We have some really important danger signals I want you to know about. One would be a seizure. One of the things that you need to be aware of is not having strobing lights. That means blinking lights on and off. That can create a seizure in someone who has a seizure difficulty already. Flushed or red face, or really pale face, means that the circulatory system and the nervous system is not handling that well. Nausea, unconsciousness, obviously, hyperactivity or hyperexcitement, when that child just can't calm down even for 20 to 40 minutes once you return them to class. Withdrawing from the environment or the staff, that child's had too much and can't cope with anymore. Or when they actually become very destructive in their environment, they've had too much. So, if our sensory room is busy and we need a quick fix, what should we do? Or if you're at home, let's say you've been at Walmart and that child is just worn out, overstimulated, maybe a family gathering, what can you do? A couple things. One is called antiseptic bouncing. That means this child is this child needs some assistance to leave the classroom or to leave the area of difficulty when they're upset, and just move them to another place. Explain to the child it is not a punishment. The next one is walk. Just walk and don't talk. We need to let that child know that they can talk, but we're not going to unless they ask us a question that we need to answer. And this is not a time to solve problems. This is a time to let them be peaceful. And again, they can talk, but we won't talk. Home base. Home base is a safe place within the school or within the home where that student or that child can go to calm down, to de-stress. It's a place where it's a place of quiet and calm. It is not punishment. That needs to be different than your time out area. But this may be a place where you've got a pillow or a blanket and maybe some books for the child to read. You can also choose items from the heavy work list, and I'll go into that in detail. And all of this is included in a handout that you will be receiving as we go through this talk. There are some really great resources for you I'd like you to know about. How Does Your Engine Run is a self-regulation program that was created by Mary Sue Williams and Sherry Stellenberger. And this is helping your child understand their own sensory system and their activity level. If you have a child that's really excited, really wound up, instead of telling them to calm down, they don't understand what's different about their behavior. You can say, your engine's running too fast. Let's see if we can slow that engine down. As well, if you have a child who's rather lethargic, isn't paying attention, or you really want to, you get them, kind of excited about what you're doing, you need to say it would be helpful to say to them, hey, your engine's running a little too slow. Let's see if we can get your engine running faster. There's a really great book that goes hand in hand with this alert program. It's called Take 5, Staying Alert at School and at Home. And it's a great book that has lots of activities to do with your child. Also, The Out of Sync Child by Carol Kranowitz and The Out of Sync Child Has Fun are great resources, both for at home and at school. There's a wonderful, wonderful book that I read this last summer, and it's called Sensory Integration and the Child, the 25th edition, by Dr. Jean Ayers. Dr. Ayers is an occupational therapist who has passed away. But she did much of the premier work probably 40 to 50 years ago on understanding sensory integration. And this 25th edition was actually recreated for the use for parents and for staff and for lay professionals. Another great book is Too Loud, Too Bright, Too Fast, Too Tight by Sharon Heller. And that will help you understand more sensory processing as well. There, at the very last couple slides, you will see places that these products can be purchased. There are also additional handouts, strategies for the hallway or classroom, and even though you're a parent, these are great to take with you and know about. There's also selected information about movement, about working against gravity, about deep pressure, about sound, touch, oral needs, and the heavy work. Now I'd like to take just a moment, and we're going to look around the room so I can show you some activities and how you might use them, something similar at your home or within this school here. Now I want to talk to you about some wonderful equipment that we have in this room and that has helped to be purchased by the Lifelong Learning Grant. As well, you can incorporate some of these things in your home. The first thing you want to do is have the kiddo remove their shoes, because that helps to keep our room clean and the equipment clean. When we think about the levels of activity, we need to understand that some things require a great deal of energy expended, such as a trampoline. And if I really go to work at this, I can get myself really hopping. But we always want to be safe. So make sure that they have something really secure to hang on to. And I wouldn't let the child jump on that more than 3 minutes or so, because you don't want to get them so ramped up that you can't get them to calm down. We have other things over on this side of the room, and if you can follow me, I'll show you them. This is a wonderful thing called this spacewalk, and it was developed by Dr. Ayers herself. This is pieces of foam that you could get at an upholstery center. Just get their scraps. Put it in a great big area. It's kind of like a pillow slip actually, but the child can jump on it. They can roll from side to side. They can crawl in it, and it is resistant. And it really takes a lot of energy to get through this. That you could have them do, you know, kneeling and do an activity while you're doing this. You can roll from side to side. There's a variety of things you could do. Some of the kids really enjoy this, where they get a chance to roll with you helping them to spot them back and forth. But some of the kids really love to climb inside and have you roll them over all the way and back. One of the other really great things is this tunnel. And I don't know if you can see inside, but it's filled full of tons of these balls. Look at this great piece of equipment. Isn't this wonderful? Guess what? The child can climb in and crawl through all of these balls. They can roll around and throw them and have the best time. And the kids absolutely love this. Or if this bothers a child, take them out. It's easy to do. You just take the front off and dump them in a little corner and then put them back in. But the kids love this tool. It is a great tool. And you know what? If you are at home, you can make something similar. Just go to the yard goods store and buy a couple of yards of a knit material, sew it into a big tube, and let the child climb inside of there. It's a great activity to help them calm down or get quiet as well. Here's another great activity. What this is a gel-filled footprint. And you could make exactly the same thing out of, you know what, you could take some scraps of vinyl or contact paper. I'm going to show you what we do with this activity. Now we're going to look down on the floor, and you can create patterns with your feet. So the child has to watch what he's doing, and maybe he has to crisscross over, get really close, and you could even have them jump and stretch. So you can do a variety of things. As well, you can do the same thing with handprints. And depending on the grouping that you use, you can make them work on paying attention to what they're doing, looking at the shape and the color, or you could also get some joint compression, that is some pressure into the joints that would help them to kind of calm down. And you also could play a game where you had them stand back and you could pick a color, say, you know, reach for the blue. And they have to not only look at the pattern, but they have to find the color. So you can make activities as versatile as you want to, and a lot of fun. This should be a fun time for the kids. It shouldn't be an activity time where they feel that they're being punished or where they feel that they are being imposed upon. It should be a lot of fun for them. Another activity that's in the very physically active area is this little item called the dance challenge. Now you know what? Again, you can order these activities from the books that I mentioned to you in the video as a parent. And this is a lot of fun because it creates different opportunities. It's kind of like Twister. That would be a similar thing, but this has music. So I'm going to demonstrate it to you, and it's kind of noisy, so we'll do just a moment of it. Okay, we turn it on, and then they have to hit over here to start. Okay, you have to step where it shows you on the grid. You could do it 1 foot, or you could do it 2 feet. Get that second one in, and back. You could do it every other foot. So we're going to stop now for a second, so we move on to something else. When we talk about moderate level of activity of the sensory integration tools that we're going to use. You can use something like an exercise ball. You can pick up one of these at like a Walmart or a Target for very, very inexpensive. This one I like because it's got a lot of texture to it and it doesn't bounce you all over the place, but the student or the child can bounce and still get some activity level going on, but they also enjoy rolling on their tummy, and you can get some weight bearing or some joint compression. Remember that proprioception we talked about? You can get it here. You can also use the hippity hop. And again, these are usually pretty easy to find. And the kids have a great time with them. But you can also add more activity to it when you have them jump to a certain spot and come back. As well, the same thing is with a scooter. And have them go across the room and come back, or run an obstacle course. This is one of the things that's really important to talk about. You're familiar with sit and spin for the younger kids, but as you get older, it doesn't really work so well. This is a wonderful activity, and it's called a mega spin. Now, what's really important to know about spinning is that the student or the child should do it for themselves. Do not ever spin a child that you can get their nervous system overly excited without you realizing it. So spinning is great, but if you do it on a tire swing or a device like this, just make sure that they're the one who are controlling the spinning. This is a fun thing. It's a scooter with a strap on it so that the student can sit here and they either, make themselves move along, or you can pull them and have them go around an obstacle course. One of the other fun things that we have is just a little wheelbarrow. You can put items in here, and that's the heavy work part. So you could load it up with some dictionaries and either have them run an obstacle course, or guess what? Have them run it down to the office. Take these down to the office and then bring it back. This little thing will hold up to 250 pounds in it. But you can get something similar like from Rubbermaid at Home Depot or something like that that would be very similar for home. This is a great activity that you can have your children get involved in too. This is called Delta sand, but you know what? You can get playground sand and you can put it in a great big Rubbermaid box that you can get from Big Lots or Walmart or Target. Put a variety of things in there. Kids love to play in sand. They love to play in rice, in beans, in corn, also water. And guess what? If you bury stuff in there, then they have to go digging in it and find it, and they love to bury it again so that their friends can't find it. Now we come to the quiet or calming time. It's really important that after you have a child do 2 to 3 minutes on the trampoline, or maybe crawl through the tunnel, or work in the spacewalk area, or roll them in the barrel, and then you move to a little bit less active model where you may be spinning, or you may be using the scooter or the bouncing ball, that you then have got to spend maybe 3 minutes to 5 minutes in this quiet, calming time. If you try to take a child from all this activity level that's built up inside of them and sit them back down in the classroom or in the cafeteria, they won't be able to do that. They need to, what we call, modulate or calm their system down slowly. So we have some great activities in this area to use. One of them is simply a rocking chair. And certainly you can use this in your home as well. Another is a quiet area where you just have a big pillow and maybe a soft animal to cuddle and books to read. Or you can even use A beanbag chair. Maybe that's a good quiet activity. This is a lovely piece of equipment that all the kids love. It's called the pea pod, because it's just like a big pea. And my assistant that uses this tells me that all the kids love being in here because it surrounds them with a lot of compression, joint compression, that helps to calm us. And it really just feels so good just to lay back